Hey there, a review today of my survival knife, my Fallkniven F1. I chose the Fallkniven F1 that comes with the Zytel sheath, so if you're looking for that one on your eBays and such, it'd be the Fallkniven F1 Z for Zytel. I chose the Zytel because I just read a review on everydaycommentary.com, just giving it a good overall opinion about the Zytel being nice and light and fairly bulletproof. So that's what I've got. And I've had a few old knives, knives from the 80s come through my my doors recently, and I've noticed some of those leather sheaths really start to get that, especially around the brass buttons and the brass rivets, they really get that build up of that green zinky stuff, that calcification or whatever it is, and then the leather starts to rot away. And so I figure this shouldn't really have too many problems like that. So there we go, the F1Z. It's a knife for me. Some specs. It's a 210mm, 21cm long knife. It's a full tang, 4.5mm thick blade. So it's not quite a 1/4 of an inch thick. I think it would be about 3/16 of an inch. 0.18 of an inch according to the site. It's a very thick knife at the stock, and it does sort of taper into a bit more of a delicate point, as you can see there. Speaking of stock, it's a VG10 cutting edge, sandwiched between two 420J sort of softer stainless steel, high sort of polish and high corrosion resistant sides. So you've got one side there, another side there, and then the core, which you can sort of see in the right light. Probably about 2mm up from the edge of the blade. There's a slight colour change, but I have just washed and I've been using this blade a bit, so it's probably got a bit of a film of scunge over it. The whole weight of the knife is 150 grams, so it's a 6 ounce package, and then we add another couple of ounces for the sheaths, I suppose. They put the blade hardness at 59, which I think would be the hardness of the core steel. The hardness of these side steels is considerably less. I'd say, for reasons I'll show you later, I think it is fairly soft steel. The thinking behind a soft steel on the sides is that it adds toughness, whereas a hard steel is brittle. So tough and brittle are the opposing adjectives there. Brittle will mean that the blade would be perhaps more likely to crack or chip, if you were to put sort of especially stress on to the left or to the right on it, and also for things like getting stuck in knotty wood and things like that. I'll roll a quick clip of me doing a bit of outdoorsy stuff right now, because I'll talk about that function of the knife once we're back. Okay, so that was me splitting a very knotty bit of very hard ironwood with the F1. It did fine, it did about as good as I would expect. You notice it's not the longest knife in the world, and I know that sort of flies in the face a lot of survival knife mentality. For me in Australia, that batoning situation I just set up just then is highly irregular. Our trees are full of oil, and geez, you can almost set them on fire as they stand in the ground by holding a lighter up to them. We don't really have the same problems of getting dry or flammable wood from our trees as you do in the colder climates, such as in the States and things. That being said, it did it fine. I found once I had enough of the edge to hit with my large baton that it was no worries at all, and went through probably about 8 or 9 knots where all the limbs had started growing out of it. I haven't talked about the handle yet. The handle is a Zytel type rubberized handle. However, people often say rubberized and then worry that it's going to be all squishy. This is certainly not squishy. To me, this just feels like hard plastic. Fallkniven's exact specification for it is Thermo Run. So make of that what you will, but it is definitely not a squishy handle at all. It is hard plastic, perhaps with a little bit less brittleness that you would find, and the rubberization would probably help with extreme heat and cold. So there you go. I have no issues with the handle. Again, it's nice and simple. I love my knives looking nice and simple. About as jazzy as you get on this knife is the lanyard hole and the tang poking out the back, which I suppose you could use as a hammer, but I think it's more just so you know it's a full tang knife from when you first see it. So as a bush knife, for me, I think it's great because the main thing is it's stainless, which I prefer where I go camping because I do a lot of kayaking, and I just like being able to, geez, you could put this in the dishwasher to wash it if you wanted to. VG10 is getting towards being less ultra corrosion resistant than the 420J, but in a pinch you can just literally hit it with your kitchen sponge. So that's a big thing for me for a survival knife because I don't really want to be taking care of it a great deal. The main purpose is just to be a bit of a dual and emergency knife where I'm not really worried whatsoever about its brittleness or the edge. Speaking of the edge, this is a convex grind, which means it is a gradual sort of curve towards the point of the edge, so your edge is coming down and then crossing over, whereas it's not the V like you'd get on the Scandi or the flat and then the micro bevel. Anyway, you can all look up convex grinds. Compared to some other knives, this is the Fallkniven next to a more bushcraft black. So the black is a bit of a bigger knife. This is next to an Opinel in its open position, which is a bit of a smaller knife. These would be great companions actually, these 3 knives. And then, just so you're completely with me, that's a Swiss Army knife. So it's a standard 91mm model. Okay. I'm just going to turn the camera off again and I'll do some basic food chopping and food prep and talk about how it goes with that afterwards. Cool, so as you can tell, it's a very sharp knife, and that's the factory edge. I might have stropped it once or twice, and just absolutely blitzes through things. However, it was a little bit tricky to get the hang of cutting straight and thin. So because there's such a thick spine and the convex edge is sort of a little bit harder to follow with your hand, you do need to sort of angle into the, perhaps, so say if you're cutting straight down this way, you sort of need to go and follow it like that. So you need to just add a little bit of an angle to get the really straight thin cuts, which I ended up getting with the salami and with the carrots, but there you have it. So let's just illustrate that this is a great camp knife. My favourite things about it are its lightness, its classic looks, its versatility, the fact that it's full tang, it's nice and rugged, good sheath, which carries quite well. Just on that, sheath has 2 retention systems. One's fairly passive, which is this. See as I slide the knife in. So you see as I slide the knife in, a long way. It is a one-way sheath, which some people are bothered by. However, if you're right-handed, I think you generally find yourself getting the hang of it pretty quick. You see as I push the knife in, that little plastic lever just there just fits in just behind the front guard, which is good. And then you've got this retention strap here, which is a nice long bit to grab. The knife pulls out just fine. A little bit of friction will hold upside down, but it won't shake. Some people complain about the rattle of the sheath. There is some rattle, but I figure when you're walking along with your backpack, you're going to be rattling from all sorts of ways, and it's only really rattly when you try to rattle it. I found, like say if you somewhat of a rattle there, if you hold it like this, it's just very minor. If you go like that, sure. So I guess that's slapping against your leg, you might be bothered by it, but apart from that, I'm not too fussed. It does have a 90-degree spine, however this is that toughness thing I was talking about earlier. I'll try and bring it up here. I did do some fire steel strikes with it earlier, and even from, you can sort of see those brighter lines come across. There's sort of little indentations of where the fire steel dug into this very soft stainless, so I don't think I'll do that again, unless obviously I have to because it's a survival situation. I think I'll just stick with my my flint and steel, or my striker and steel, rather than using the back of my knife. Or I'll use a harder knife like this Mora Bushcraft Black, which the steel of this would, even though it's a carbon steel, would be probably a few shades harder than that. 420J, which I would guess would be about a 54 on the Rockwell scale, 53 maybe. I don't know. I'm not a steel expert. So in terms of negatives, that's probably about the only one. Just my hesitance to use a fire steel on it, but then that's all just of that hypothetical survival stuff that everyone gets into anyway. As a camp knife, which is mainly what I'm going to use it for, it's unnoticeable until you need it, and then it feels very steadfast in your hand, and I couldn't recommend it any higher. The costs will be about $170 in Australia. I got mine from an eBay seller called Granbergs, who send their stuff out very quickly, and very good. I'd strongly recommend going and getting one if this is your cup of tea. Thank you, and see you then.